How think about Bob? Could have been better. I did well in my job interview. Good for you. He gave Sandra the needs, but they could make a head of or tail of them. You can't do it about time. It's out of the question. Do them one by one. Bob, don't disturb her. Mind your own business, he whispered. If you persisted bothering her like that, she'd lose her temper. He was certain that he could resist temptation. Stop making fuss. It will get him now, she shouted. There's no point in talking back to Nick. He's a dictator, so to speak. You're very polite in his brilliant actually. They already talk back about it behind his back. It's very not dodgy. On the contrary, I look after him. His considerate aroused her anger. I'm fed up with just trying with papers and pouring coffee. I've made up my mind to quit. In reality, many people have difficulty making ends meet. How can I get by 100,000 a year? Female can will male complain with a routine which are not challenging at all. Thanks to fundamental destruction as surprise swell threefold. Many people today think loyalty to a company as an abstract notion. I have the community all the way from the distant suburbs. I'm sick of it. I went to spend the rest of my life pursuing my ideals. After retirement, Taylor devoted herself to caring for orphans. For the sake of children in need, we cooperated collect donations. The charity named a man who gave away some 2 billion yen. He automatically released today and sold out by noon. Ted, who is often referred to as the two-other man of integrity, is going to run for mayor. Get was disappointed the outcome of the election. The ministry hosted is concentrated on specific issues. This is the case in the those who live on pension are forced to lead a hard life. We should reveal this data is far from accurate. We tend to associate politicians with hypocrisy. They are primarily concerned with expunging gas, not with enhancing our living standards. No man must be targeted to dominate influence on the Conservative Party, though his power is diminishing. The spokesman refused to make any comment, saying it's under investigation. The police said there are something stunning behind the scenes. They expect to entertain the bureaucrat at Lotte or exclusive Japanese restaurant, hoping for something in return. They check the front then leaking any confidential information. No one dares to contact his or her employer for fear of being fired. He sacrificed from his career to retain his dignity. I'm not about to weaken myself, reconcile myself to my fate. He was about to commit suicide by swallowing poison, but he thought better of it. The big rumor proved to be false. Nevertheless, some skepticism lingers on. As he was suspectedly accepting bribes from the company, but there isn't sufficient evidence to arrest him. Jason, who was in charge of the project, was dismissed for the corruption. To my knowledge, he was not involved in a fraud scheme. They found the truth while examining the pile of relevant documents. During a trial, it became alleged that they had been covering up legal transactions for decades. They declared down his testimony on the spot, word for word. For the first time in my life, I felt a pang of conscience, but there is no other way out. I was surrounded by the vivid nightmare I had last night. Melanie, reported on the heritage to intrude on one's privacy. The author reverts his manuscript over and over again. It's second to none when it comes to finding fault with others. On the whole, the editor was sensitive to criticism. When the tabloid revealed that he was a drug addict, his reputation was all but ruined. The conservative of the defense program, and it pointed out numerous flaws. We will not tolerate anyone who engages in terrorism. The notable was ultimately captured and confined to jail. Troops were swiftly called it to be put out of blades. We should appeal to this instead of resorting to violence. I suggest we adopt flexible tactics for the moment. The armed forces actively back the entire territory. Under the circumstances, the enemy had not to surrender. They can't hold out any longer. Sooner or later, the hostages will be set free. Under Roman tyranny, innocent people were deprived of their citizenship. Some soldiers were deducted obey the command. Hitler led him and bound to collapse. The Allies condemned the invasion as a violation of UN resolutions. We cannot lose the possibility that civil war break out in that country. The colony declared independence and became a republic. Section 36. An invention elected in honor of the noble patriot. They got an unhinged the praise for the souls of the deceased. The certificate is located in the Imperial Palace. The project group protects against a ban of abortion. Senator Ford remained neutral in the bitter controversy. Ford had been attacked the situation all week long. He is no longer capable of coping with it. The summit talks are broadcast simultaneously throughout the world. Diplomatic helped put an end to the conflict. Johnson was appointed a goodwill ambassador to foster mutual understanding between the two nations. The spirit of political international tension will build up. In my opinion, Panama peace is nothing on illusion. Economic minorities struggle against prejudice, poverty and oppression, but they promoted aware of discrimination. The immigrants endured physical and mental pain. The mental reaction because it didn't take racial diversity into account. Needless to say, the refugees are longing for freedom. According to a survey, 3 people today are indifferent foreign affairs. What would become Japan's radiation if the security treaty expires this year? It means unfair tariffs. The US will impose sanctions. Tariff matters between the two nations at any moment. After the property, the settled dispute was unfolded, so we are ready to meet them halfway. The federal budget narrowly approved by Congress. He argues that the municipality must look for alternative sources of revenue. Posted that the overwhelming majority is in favor of legislation. The cops were searching for clues to the brutal murder. Man must have been insane. He can't distinguish vice from virtue. The fingerprint left on the weapon correspond with the suspect. It took us by surprise, which was noted security were accused of kidnapping. The jury guilty verdict gave rise to widespread debate. The matter filled it for mercy, but he was sentenced to 20 years in prison for crime. He also wanted possibly elder man coming up behind him. He caught out of a sheep attempting to break into the house. The day before yesterday, we witnessed a weird incident in the wilderness. I became aware someone took selling to me from across the yard. I turned around, but there was no one in sight. Screamed horror and someone took hold of her arm. Informed of her safety, he breathed a sigh of relief. The breath went to his chest, leaving him in critical conditions. Apparently, it is uncertain whether the delivery or by accident. They recorded fire and burned down, leaving a heap of ashes. All of a sudden, the fireworks warehouse exploded, and it took 2 days to resolve the blaze. But rest of the 30-story building, where 50 people seriously wounded. A cargo vessel bound for Athens sank in the Mediterranean without a trace. The latest one was death during the expedition to the Antarctic. The authorities must be remembered so as not to be repeated. Section 40. The example for the profound interest into ancient civilization. Giotto is credited the southern seas of Italian Renaissance. Bob mounted the portrait in a fancy frame, but it was upside down. This magnificent cathedral dates back to the Middle Ages. Ancient religion inspired him to create splendid sculptures. They traveled desert in search of the buried treasure. Many insisted on acquiring the masterpiece, no matter how much it cost. Myth and legend should be handed down in generation to generation. The linguistic fluent in several Chinese dialects. The Turkish is the asset and speaks its own language, which is not familiar to us. The authorities had older customs still prevailed in the province. Wicked with certain evil spread on the man and turned him in the bag. They approached along a steep path, which allowed access to the border. When they became emerged from the cave, they got frightened and ran away. Believe it or not, I saw an alien and then it vanished. Give me a break. Oh? 誰だ頭はんんお前出してねえんだろあとあとどこ行ったさっきもいたの出しやがったのかな
だってだ、ふざけてやったな。
あ